Today, we're jumping into a pretty fascinating and, let's be real, sometimes confusing part of the Bible, Deuteronomy 14. It's full of all these really specific rules about what you can eat, how you should grieve, even how to handle your money. And you might wonder, what's with all the rules? But what if they aren't random at all? What if they're actually a blueprint for something much bigger? I mean, that's the big question, right? Why the obsession with split hooves? Why did it matter if a fish had fins and scales? At first glance, it all seems so random. But as we're about to see, there's a really deep logic at work here, a powerful meaning hiding just under the surface of these ancient laws. And here's the big idea. These aren't just a bunch of restrictive rules for the sake of it. No, they're a deliberate blueprint for a community to live a distinct life, a holy life. And all that means is a life that was intentionally set apart and different from all the other cultures around them. Every single detail was designed to shape a totally unique identity. Now, here's what's so cool about how this all works. The text doesn't start with a list of don'ts. It starts with identity. The whole logic is that you can't even begin to understand the what, the rules, until you first get a handle on the who, the identity of the people these rules were for. This quote just nails it. It gets right to the heart of the matter. For the ancient Israelites, their actions and their obedience weren't about earning a relationship with God, not at all. It was the natural result of a relationship that was already there. Their identity was like the source code for their entire way of life. So, what was this identity? Well, the chapter kicks off with three really powerful descriptions. First, they are children of God. This frames the whole relationship as family. It's about love and belonging, not slavery and fear. Second, they're a holy people, which just means they were set apart for a special purpose. And third, a special treasure, which tells them they are uniquely valued and intentionally chosen. And listen, this identity wasn't just some nice idea, it had immediate real-world consequences. For example, the text says you can't do things like cut yourself in mourning for the dead. Why? Because as children of God, their response to death was supposed to be completely different. It was supposed to be rooted in hope, not in the kind of desperate self-harm that other cultures practiced. Their identity changed how they did everything, even how they grieved. And that, of course, brings us to the part of the chapter everybody knows, the food laws. This is where the whole idea of being set apart gets super practical, right down to what's on your dinner plate. See, holiness wasn't just for a special building, it was for the kitchen table too. For land animals, it all came down to a simple two-part test. To be considered clean, an animal had to have a split hoof and it had to chew the cud. It wasn't one or the other, you had to pass both parts of the test. This created this powerful symbol of completeness, of wholeness. This little table makes it super clear. You've got the ox. Does it chew the cud? Yep. Split hoof? Yep. It's clean. But then look at the pig. It's got the split hoof, but it doesn't chew the cud, so it fails the test. The camel is the exact opposite. Chews the cud, but no split hoof. Fails the test. Only the animals that checked both boxes were on the menu. And this same kind of logic applied to the water and the air. For sea creatures, it was fins and scales. You needed both. And the list of forbidden birds? Well, if you look closely, it's basically a list of predators and scavengers, birds associated with violence and death. The symbolic principle here is so powerful. God's people were not to symbolically consume violence, death, or decay into their own body. Okay, so what about that really weird rule about not boiling a young goat in its mother's milk? That sounds totally bizarre to us, but it wasn't about a recipe. Archaeologists have found that this was likely a specific pagan ritual practiced by the Canaanites to promote fertility. So this law introduces a key idea, syncretism. It was basically a spiritual firewall to stop them from mixing their pure worship of God with the pagan practices all around them. Now, this blueprint for being distinct didn't stop with food, not even close. It went right from the dinner table into their finances. The very same principles of holiness and community that shaped what they ate also shaped their entire approach to giving and wealth. It turned generosity into a deeply spiritual act. And the text tells us the purpose of the tithe straight up. It wasn't just about raising money for an institution. No, it was a spiritual practice. The whole point was that you may learn to fear, or maybe a better way to put it is to revere and trust God always. It was this built-in annual lesson to remember who their true provider really was. And get this, the tithe wasn't some quiet, serious chore you had to do. The Bible describes it as a joyful communal feast. The idea was for a family to take their tithe to the central place of worship and throw a party, celebrating God's goodness and sharing their abundance with others. It was a party with a holy purpose. But it gets even more radical. Every third year, they had a special tithe. And this one didn't go to the central sanctuary. It was stored up right there in their own towns, specifically to take care of the most vulnerable people in the community: the Levites, immigrants, orphans, and widows. This is where spiritual faithfulness and social justice become completely intertwined. You just can't have one without the other. So you might be thinking, this is all really interesting history, but what does it have to do with us today? Well, the New Testament is pretty clear that those specific food laws have been fulfilled. But, and this is so important, the why behind those laws, the deep principles that drove them, those are absolutely timeless, and they have so much to teach us.
So what are those principles? Well, first, there's discernment, the wisdom to be intentional about what we allow into our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. Then there's purity, this call to live a life that's spiritually whole and undivided. Third is joyful generosity, seeing our giving not as a duty but as a core act of worship and trust. And finally, justice, this non-negotiable truth that you cannot say you honor God if you're neglecting people in need.
When you look back at this ancient blueprint, you start to see it in a whole new light. What at first looked like a long list of harsh restrictions was actually designed as a form of protection. It was about protecting a community's unique identity, their health, and their spiritual well-being. And that all leads to this final thought. In this blueprint, obedience was never, ever meant to be a heavy burden you had to carry. It was meant to be the joyful, natural way you live when you know you belong. The way a treasured, holy people live out who they already are.